So in the wake of two recent shootings, Biden came out today calling for Congress to pass universal background checks as well as immediately ban so-called assault weapons and so-called large capacity magazines. Let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think that the federal government needs to stop infringing on our Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to two of the main sponsors of the channel, the first being Acelink Armor. Acelink Armor sells plates and plate carriers, high quality bundles. They're out of here, the state of California. This is the Famosa plate carrier with level 4 ceramic plates. Their bundles are high quality, they don't break the bank, and if you use the code ARMSCHOLAR, you will get 10% off of your order, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. I also want to thank USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and also self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, if you want to defend yourself and your family, you always have to think about the legal ramifications after the fact, and I always recommend you look into companies like USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So recently we had two shootings, the first being the Atlanta, Georgia shooting, and also now recently the Colorado Boulder shooting. This has gained a lot of attention, and today we had Biden come out and has a renewed call for Congress, primarily the Senate, first to pass H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446, which deal with universal background checks and also the so-called closing of the Charleston loophole. These are things we've discussed prior on this channel. We've discussed H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446. And if you're interested in learning more about H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446 and what they do, you can click this tab right there, and it'll take you to the videos that I did covering those two bills. But as a result of these two shootings, Biden has come out and said that he is calling for the Senate to immediately pass H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446, because prior it was looking like, although these passed the House, that they were likely going to die in the Senate because of the filibuster, and also there wasn't enough Republican support to even cross the lines. There was some Republican support below in the House, but it wasn't looking like there was going to be a ton of Republican support in the Senate. But now there might even be concern that maybe even more Republican senators will cross the line. But on top of that, now Biden is saying and calling for the Senate to immediately pass these two bills. And in his speech, he said that we don't know all the details right now, which we don't. We don't know all the details about the firearms used, the individual, his motives, even if he had magazines that held more than 10 rounds. There's not a whole lot of clear information, but he said, regardless of all of that, we shouldn't wait a minute, yet another hour in passing so-called common sense gun control. And in his mind, that common sense gun control would be the Senate passing these universal background checks and this law that would also extend out the NICS requirement of the FBI from 3 days to 10 days to potentially indefinite. He thinks that that is common sense, that the Senate should pass that immediately. And he also said that Congress should look at also passing bans on so-called assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Early in February, on Valentine's Day, Biden had a list of things that he wanted Congress to do. On that list were universal background checks. On top of that, he also wanted a ban on assault weapons and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. And so this is a new, renewed push by Biden in the wake of these two shootings to try to get Congress to pass these. In a discussion of why we should ban so-called assault weapons and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, he says that we've done it in the past. He did it as a senator, that it had great effect, that it was implemented for a while. He didn't even know that it was implemented for 10 years. And then he said that it was effective, which actually contradicts what the FBI told us. And the FBI, after that original ban in 1994, actually told us and showed that that assault weapons ban did absolutely nothing to decrease crime in the US. Despite all of this evidence, there is still a renewed call for bans on so-called assault weapons and magazines, as well as these universal background checks that are currently in the Senate. On top of all of that, there is also rumors that Biden might actually try to do additional gun control through executive orders. Now, what form this will take, we don't know. Biden himself hasn't come out and saying that he's going to do something directly on gun control through executive actions. No one in his administration has said exactly what that would look like, but what this could end up being is additional regulation by the ATF and making things just even more complicated. And there's been renewed ATF actions in targeting pistol braces, as well as so-called ghost guns. So it could take the form of that. So it's not surprising that Biden came out and has a renewed call for bans on so-called assault weapons, large capacity magazines, and is now pushing for the Senate to emotionally react to these shootings in passing H.R. 8 and H.R. 1446. Anytime there's incidents like this that happen in the US, the blame is shifted from the individual, the criminal who commits these criminal actions, to blaming guns and needing more laws and regulation on the mechanisms and the items themselves, instead of pointing the finger at the actual criminal who engaged in the criminal activity. But this is concerning in some ways because we already had a heavy push by the Biden administration and in Congress for other forms of gun control, and they had been pretty active recently in trying to push for these. We thought that these bills, HR 8 and HR 1446, would just die in the Senate, but now we have to be even more vigilant in reaching out to our representatives because we don't want them acting emotionally in passing these bills or passing any other types of bills like the Feinstein assault weapons ban that she introduced. So we need to be vigilant on all these things, and I will definitely keep you guys updated if there's any more additional movement or calls or actions or anything like that that pops up, especially if there's like executive orders or it's looking like the Senate is going to take a vote sooner rather than later on HR 8 and HR 1446, or if it's looking like things are going to shift. One of the things I will mention, like I have in other videos, I highly recommend you reach out to those individuals like Joe Manchin who have said that they will not vote to change the rules on the filibuster or get rid of the filibuster. I think we still need to be contacting these individuals and also just contacting your representatives in the Senate and letting them know that you don't agree with passing HR 8, HR 1446, or any ban on so-called assault weapons or magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, despite what Joe Biden is calling them to do. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell because that helps the channel analytics, helps to spread the word about the Second Amendment, also spread the word about things like this that are going on in the US to try and attempt to infringe on our Second Amendment rights. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.